Welcome back to Cardmarket Yugioh. Today we're talking all things Yu-Gi-Oh, but also all things Magic the Gathering. We're gonna look at both games and see what's going on in each of them and see if maybe we can steal some things to make each of our games better. Let's check it out. Today I'm here with Johnny and also special guest from the Magic channel, Thoralf. How's it going?
Hello, good.
I would like to know, first and foremost, as a Magic player, what do you think about Yu-Gi-Oh? What is going on? What do you hear about it? What do you know about it? Where are we at in the card game community, in the general perception of things?
So I basically only get very basic common knowledge stuff.
You're like, oh yeah, there was an anime on 20 years ago, Blue Eyes White Dragon, blah,
Right.
blah, blah.
I remember something that I know, which always puzzled me, I think. Somehow their way of doing art is very mysterious. Like, wasn't it that there's officially one person who does the art and nobody knows they exist? And
yeah, I mean, that is what I would say is a pretty large issue with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is they don't credit their artists at all, which I think is like a very modern TCG thing to do, is like, oh, who drew the card that I'm playing, and their name is just right there, right? But Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't do that at all and probably never will, if I had to guess.
part of Magic is the hype around art and artists.
Yeah, and I think in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's similar. There's specific art styles that cards get done in, and you're like, oh yeah, this is the person who like does all the Prank Kids cards. I love the way these cards look or whatever, right? But you just have no way to like actually know who that is. Or, I mean, if you do your digging online, maybe you can find it somehow, but with all the like NDAs and stuff, it's almost impossible, right? So I do find that very strange because a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards look really good. The artwork is really awesome, but yeah, not being able to tell who drew it really sucks.
What's your favorite artwork?
My favorite artwork is Despair from the Dark, which is a very old zombie card. I played it in the Childhood Decks video. Thanks for the callback. Yeah, click the Childhood Deck video. It's a good time. Even the modern cards, there's so many modern cards, like even like the Dominus cards or whatever, where you look at it and you're like, this is a piece of artwork. Like this is really something here, but no credit. Who knows?
Best artwork, still Jerry Beans, man.
Everyone loves Jerry Beans, man. And thankfully, at official events, we're not playing for beans anymore. We're playing for actual prizing. Isn't that nice?
Actually, I did get a Jerry Beansman coin, so technically you still get beans.
There you go.
Think of it that way. You go to an event with 2,500 players. You're paying like, I think between 20 or 50 euro for entry. You fly across Europe, get a hotel room, you bring a deck that's like 1,000 euro, and you sit down, you play, and 12 rounds of Swiss, 15 rounds of Swiss, you're in top 32.
So far I'm with you.
Yeah, sounds fun, right?
And then you lose, okay? Like you made it to top 32 out of 2,500 players. Mm-hmm. What do you think is adequate pricing for that?
I mean, Magic never paid enough for that, and we got like a few hundreds.
A few hundred, okay. Well, until very recently, unless you got top 64, all you got was entry packs. If you got top 64, you got a playmat that's roughly like $50. And then like top 64 to like fourth, there was just
Fourth.
yeah, there was just a bit more boosters, like maybe like top 8 got a display or something.
Yep.
And then top 4 got like the third player and second and first, they got the same card in different rarities. Like a third and second, they got the super rare version. First got an ultra rare version. They were like 200, 300, maybe $400 if you sell them. First place also got a trophy and the Nintendo Switch.
Your game must be great for people to show up in that many numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah, just forget about getting cash at all is the first thing.
Yes, no cash.
We'll never get cash for a Yu-Gi-Oh event.
We even had someone win a Ninja air fryer. There's a picture that goes around of someone that won a tournament that just got an air fryer.
Yeah.
That was I think a low point. But very recently they changed it. Now top 32 basically
Gets a Ninja air fryer.
top 32 gets a stamped version of a card. Currently that's Card Trooper. I don't understand why they give us that card, because it's a card that has not been played for the last 15 to 20 years. And you get it as a top 32 prize for doing well in advanced format. But that card is a few $100.
Okay.
Top 16 gets an Effect Veiler. which is a like Soul Ring kind of meta play. Not as staple as Soul Ring, but
More
like
playable than,
very staple card.
yeah,
I think it
card
started
trooper.
out at 1,500. Now it's like €1,000. That's for top 16. And then between top 16 and first place, again, you don't get nothing. And actually, getting top 16 gets you more money than winning the tournament, because winning the tournament, you still just get a Switch, but a Switch 2. And the card that like is worth a few $100.
Okay. Yeah, they've moved some of the pricing also to individual cards that are just made for those events. And some are bangers, some are not, but they pay a significant amount, especially in the higher tournaments. I remember that the Lord of the Rings Pro Tour got like a foil Gandalf, and that's on site sold for 8,000 to 9,000.
Wow.
And that was like top 16 or top 32 or something. So if you become world champion, what do you win?
Trophy?
An air fryer.
Because I can tell you in Magic, it's I think right now 100,000.
You get 100 grand?
And the one I played, the winner got 300,000.
Rule is no cash pricing, only goodie pricing. And honestly, I think for the World Championships, it's the exact same thing. You get a price card that says like, that's either the ultra rare version or the super rare version. I think there were also 2 different variants of that card usually. And so you get one card and you can sell it for 10, 15, 20K or something.
What would you recommend for someone who's new to Magic? How would you tell someone to start playing Magic? Because in Yu-Gi-Oh, there really isn't a great like way to let someone in and say, hey, come play this with me. It's kind of just like everything all at once, and it's super overwhelming. Yeah. So is that the same sort of experience as in Magic?
Definitely. If people say, most of you heard of Commander, people say like, yeah, just play a round of Commander with us and you will kind of understand how it is. That's about the worst thing you can do, because it's basically saying that you want to learn some math, here is some astrophysics or something.
Right.
Luckily, we in Magic have a very, very good program called Arena, which is very nicely visual, but also you learn Magic by somebody who trains you without losing patience. They explain to you little steps, and if you didn't get it, well, the little Sparky will explain it again. You did not understand what flying does after the 5th time, he will smile and explain it again.
Yeah, the main issue, I think, in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that the core gameplay mechanics are so much more complicated than Magic. Yes, there's complicated keywords and there's complicated abilities and stuff in Magic, but the base level of like, you play your lands, they make your mana, you pay the cost, you play the card.
And luckily, this is still what Magic does today. You play a land, you create a creature, you attack. This is, even today, most of Magic's.
Yeah.
From what I understood, that is not most of Yu-Gi-Oh's.
No.
Not even close.
Most of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like, you begin your turn. First of all, you decide, do you have some things to do in your upkeep? But like, you go to your main phase and then you have your 5 cards and you can summon 2 or 3 of them right now and they do different effects. And you have to have in your head the 15 to sometimes 60 part like step combo that each of these cards enables. And then you have to look at your opponent's board and, okay, he can do this and that, and he has this interaction. So if he keeps this interaction and I start with this card at step 12, if he then does this, I need this other card in my hand. And so it's a really nice thing once you get to figuring these things out and you can play around these interactions. But if you just have your hand in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you look at it, it's usually none of these cards will stay on the board.
Yeah.
Like they will all be in the graveyard within 20 actions, and then you have other cards there.
So it's kind of logic puzzle.
Yes.
Very much so. Like, you know, especially if you're going second, like your opponent does their stuff and they have their pieces on the board and then it's your turn and you very much have to just like puzzle it out and figure, okay, can I get rid of that? He's going to do that to this. Okay, if I do this and this and this and this and this and that, and then you got to follow the rainbow all the way to the end. And sometimes you just have to get on the ride and say, well, I don't know where we're going, but we're gonna give it a shot, right? We're gonna see what happens.
Sometimes you have a random draw in there that changes everything.
Yeah.
It's a bit like these chess puzzles that you get. Like you have this board space and like three moves to mate or something like that.
Exactly.
And you have to think, well, if I were to move, he does that. That's kind of the same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! But you do it from moment one on.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned about like training like on the online client, we technically have that too in Master Duel.
There is a tutorial
But it is really like coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb kind of level. Like you go in and you do your practice thing, and the same thing for us, you learn your attack and defense. And for example, the game teaches you in like one of the first things that you can set a card face down.
In defense mode.
Yeah.
Which is just like an action you will 99% never ever do in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Like ever. Like
So the whole thing of flipping a card to have an effect just doesn't happen?
There's just now
I
they
was
made
gonna
a
say,
deck.
There's one exception, brand new.
But if we exclude Enneacraft, I think the last time Flip was somewhat viable was Guru, and that was 2019 or something like that. But yeah, basically the issue is if you set a card, usually you cannot flip it up in the same turn. Traps have to stay there, quick plays have to stay there, monsters stay there. So in a game that is as fast-paced as Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, you're wasting entire turn of card economy of a card just sitting there instead of just playing a card that does something immediately and gets you 3 more cards. So the flip effect would have to be so obscenely busted that it would make the card really, really unfun to play. And also, if it just sits there and your opponent starts, okay, destroy your card. It doesn't trigger, it doesn't activate, nothing happens, it just goes.
And that is the issue. The Master Duel tutorial basically teaches you how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! As it was 20 years ago.
Yes.
It doesn't teach you how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2026. Like, it's the basic, bare bones, normal summon attack, that's it.
It just you anime
But
Yu-Gi-Oh!
it doesn't give you any sort of ideas of how to actually play a deck or combo or like actually feel like you're playing the modern game.
Now that you're saying that's also an advantage. In Magic you have limited, which means you build a deck out of boosters. And that will always return to Magic how it's meant to be, like in the past, because you can't build an elusive combo deck out of just the cards you open. So you will always be restricted to creatures, combat math, and basic Magic card things. And it's one of the things you can, after you've told somebody to learn Magic, or they learned, throw them in, right? Like learn about card assessment, and it's a very nice transition, and some people only play limited.
Yeah, and that's something else that Yu-Gi-Oh! is very much missing, is we have no draft format, we have no limited format. Like, you can't just go buy a box and open packs and build a deck out of it.
I mean, you can, but...
You can, but it won't do anything. It won't work. And that's just based on the card design. All the cards are designed to work together in such a way that if you're just opening random packs, it's not enough to make a full strategy. And even if it is, you're probably missing pieces of that strategy that came out in an older pack like 3 years ago or something. And now all the new cards work with those older cards. So you're missing half the deck, essentially. It's just so tough to make a limited format in Yu-Gi-Oh! But if they could just do it, I think it's so, so important for a card game. And it's just so sad that we can't quite figure it out.
The issue with us is like, we have like creature types like you guys do, like human and wizards.
Right? You just...
For us, we have the 2, like we have like 22 or something like that.
Yeah, it's around 20, yeah.
Then we basically have colors, like we have attributes. But on top of that, we have archetypes. And so it's basically just in the name. You will have a name that these cards share. And usually in the card text, they will say, you can search a card of that archetype.
Yeah.
And you can do special summon with that, and you can revive, and you give cards from that archetype bonus effects. And if you just open a booster and you try to draft, you get like 1 card with that archetype and then 1 card with that archetype, and they might have good effects, but they can't work together.
No, it's
and
not possible.
I think if you just said like, if a card mentions an archetype, like it can be any archetype, I think then it would just be too much.
It's interesting, right? Because in Yu-Gi-Oh!, when you play a deck as the archetype, most of the time it's doing something that no other deck really does. Like, every archetype kind of breaks the rules of the game in its own way, which is what makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Fun and unique and gives people attachment to all these decks, is because like, oh, if I play Malice, every time I banish one of these, I can special summon it back. No other deck really does that. It's really cool. I really like the card advantage I get from that, blah, 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 whatever. And every deck kind of has their own little thing that they like basically design a whole new mini game just for these cards, right?
So I have a question. Let's say you align all the card games and somebody wants to start, and you have to make a pitch that is unique to Yu-Gi-Oh! Why should somebody start Yu-Gi-Oh! Instead of Magic? What does Yu-Gi-Oh! Do best for somebody who wants to play a card game?
I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Gives the most points of interaction during each turn, where the player is given a decision. Usually, like very often people will say, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh! Turn, like game is over in one turn, maybe 2 turns and the duel is over. But very often in the first turn, you will have had, even as the person going second with your cards that you have in hand, maybe 20 situations where you could have interacted with your cards. And choosing the right moment to interact, to then stifle their combo, gets to the point where like you can win a game that you shouldn't be winning, you can break a board that looks like very hard to break. And understanding that and learning that process is really rewarding and very fun. The most fun games, in my opinion, are the ones that almost go into time in turn one. Currently I'm playing a deck called Radiant Typhoon, which has a lot of quick play cards that give a lot of moments where you can activate cards. And very often my game one takes like 40 minutes.
I cannot believe I just heard that.
I mean, yeah. I don't know if I would necessarily go that far. I
love it.
I don't know if I agree with that. But I do think, like, Yu-Gi-Oh!, yes, the game is over in 2 turns, whatever. That's what everyone says, right? But Johnny is right in terms of what is happening within those 2 turns.
Yeah.
It's like you're having 10 turns for every 1 turn, right? There's so much back and forth. There's so much interaction. And I don't know. I just feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like so rewarding. Like once you finally get it, you really have to like commit and climb that mountain. But once you get to that peak, you're like, you see God. You're like, I understand. I finally get it. And you just like, you get the highest high out of any card game I've ever played, I think.
If you have a person that plays absolutely perfectly with knowledge of anything, how high would their win rate be?
I mean, we have some people, for example, just very recently, we have a player in the US called Kamal who won 2 YCSs in a row. 2,000 plus player events, 15 rounds of Swiss. And he won back-to-back American YCSs, if I recall correctly, with like heavy combo decks. Like lots of decision points. I think last weekend we had YCS Sydney. And Jesse Cotton, one of the most like accoladed players in the world, he got to finals again. He lost in the finals against another good player. But you do see the really, really high profile players making it to the top cuts very, very consistently.
What is the competitive circuit in Magic like? Is there the same level of consistency with like top Magic players?
Nowadays, no. Because they've restricted the amount of tournaments to 3 a year plus World Championship.
Oh, wow.
And in order to qualify for those, this is all post-COVID, you have some regional tournaments, basically a ladder system that brings you there. And then once you are playing the big tournament, they have kind of a system where if you win a lot, all your points in a rolling system count how much you've won in your last 3 tournaments. And if it's over a certain threshold, you're qualified for the next one. Okay. Magic has a lot of luck. You will end up not being there eventually. And people who have been world champions or who are very, very known for being good are not anymore. Because the incentive is not monetary-wise also, but also the system just doesn't allow it. There's no reward for consistency. And what I've heard, this sounds like if you're like your level cap, your skill cap on Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so high, even though much more difficult, that it's worth striving to that point and training for it, and that's the reward.
Yeah.
Because in Magic, that is not the case.
Yeah, if you're one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Players in the world and you know that and you study the game and you take it really seriously, the gap between you and the average player is like miles and miles and miles, which I know is also true for any game, basically.
It's less true in Magic because you're naturally screwed by your mana system.
You know what? Actually, going back, if I had to pitch to a new player why they should play Yu-Gi-Oh!, you'll never draw a land when you want to draw a spell. That's why you should play Yu-Gi-Oh! I have to ask you, as a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player, one of the only things I know about Magic is all this Universes Beyond stuff that's going on. That seems to be all anyone's talking about. So can I get like a little insight into the Magic world, what all this is and what it means, and if Yu-Gi-Oh! Should avoid going down this route at all costs?
They found out at the pace they have to print Magic cards in order for the company to make more and more profit, they cannot appeal to everybody.
Yes.
Which makes sense. Magic, a lot of years ago, was it had 4 big sets a year. You cared about all of them. But that only means you can milk the cash cow 4 times a year. So if they now print, let's say, 8 sets, then people get fatigued of buying the stuff. And the way to make money is to get more people into Magic. And the way to get more people into Magic is pick the areas where people might get interested in Magic. Obviously, superhero, comics, fantasy, all of those are close to Magic.
Right.
So if you have a friend who likes Spider-Man, you say like, hey, do you want to play Magic? No. Do you want to play Magic with Spider-Man?
Yeah.
And then they go like, actually, you know what? I would do that. And there was a set about those fairy tale bunnies. People that I know, roughly were in the age where they had children. Their children started Magic with this because they could convince them, instead of you have like really weird skeleton warriors or whatever, you have like little bunnies and it's cool. And all of those makes economically a lot of sense. And if you are okay enough with Magic, not everything in Magic is for you, it's great. You pick and choose, you only get the best for you. If you are entitled that everything of Magic's for you, you're gonna get frustrated.
I mean, I think Yu-Gi-Oh's at the point you're talking about with the little bunnies. It's like, oh yeah, we have tons of different decks. If you want to play the deck about little bunnies, you can do that. If you want to play the deck about giant robots in space, you can do that, right? There is a lot of variety within Yu-Gi-Oh, within the decks, within the sets. We also have a huge problem getting new players into the game because the game is so complex. Yes. Is the way to get people into Yu-Gi-Oh to start putting Spider-Man on some of our cards? That I'm not too sure about.
Canine Spider-Man.
In order for normalizing this, it needs to be not uncool. Because for most of the society, doing stuff that is uncool is not okay. Because you're afraid that your friends might seem you weird, like you're a nerd, or I mean nowadays is more of a buff than a disadvantage.
Yeah, now it's cool to be a nerd.
But you're always like struggling with this, is this socially acceptable? And in order to become socially acceptable, more of the society, you need to see it happen, right? And that's why they branch out in so many things. If Elijah Wood tells you Magic is a great game, I play it myself, that's reinforcement, like I think the Americans call it endorsing or something, for a president or something. Yep. It's the same thing, right? You're socially crediting the thing that it's okay to do. Even Elijah does it.
Yeah.
Now, Magic has a really big like happening with some of the Olympic skiers, I think, or one of like the ice ladies. They played Magic and they ripped Magic and they did Magic during all of those Olympics and they've gone viral and it drips into all those different franchises, Doctor Who, sports, music, all of those. And that just eventually makes like when you say like, hey, I play Magic, and they're like, you know what? That's cool. I've heard of it.
I've heard of that before. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I will say we had similar things in Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, we had Noah Lyles there last year who was flashing his Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards while he was winning gold medal.
The freaking president.
Yeah.
Macron?
Macron in France had his little speech. And
most recently, Timothée Chalamet playing Yu-Gi-Oh!
That's right. He did a whole photo shoot of him in a card shop. Resolving Junk Speeder, I think, which is really funny. But yeah, I do agree the more people hear about it, especially if it's from people they already know and recognize, the more people are going to get into it. So
I think I learned last year that there's a different tournament or a different legality in Japan than in the other part of the world, which is crazy to me because like you're kind of having 2 games instead of 1.
One of the main problems people have with Yu-Gi-Oh! And its format is that all the cards come out in Japan first, like, you know, up to like 6 months ahead of time compared to the West, right? So they get to play with all these cards and use them and whatever. and then we don't get them until later, right? So we have two different competitive formats going on in Japan versus going on in the rest of the world, essentially.
Why is that the case?
Great question, because it started 20 years ago and it never got changed, basically.
It's even
I
worse.
don't think it's genius to question that it happened. So they need to probably release statements to why that still is.
Like when you guys get like bans or something, you usually get like we banned this card because of interaction X kind of like post. Yeah, we just get a list. Sometimes we don't even understand why cards are banned. It's even worse because we don't just have the OCG and the TCG. TCG being the Western side, OCG being the like original card game in Japan. We also have Master Duel, which is actually one of the larger portions of the overall Yu-Gi-Oh player base. And that game is a mix of the two. So if you're trying to play TCG and you want to test online, you can go into Master Duel, but Master Duel is even further behind in some sets, but has some cards that are already out in Japan or even not out in Japan yet. And so neither format is the same. So if you try to test for one of the formats, it gets all jumbled up. And then for the World Championships, they take the TCG and the OCG format, they take the ban list and they're like, okay, we just put everything together and whatever is banned or hit harder on each ban list, that we take. And so it gets even worse on the World Championships. It's a format that no one ever plays except like 16 people a year.
No one plays the Worlds format except the people who go to Worlds.
Okay, based on this, I've developed a running theory. There is a house or an area called Konami in Japan, I assume.
Sure.
Everybody in that office died. So there's not a living soul. Nobody knows what's going on.
The phone is just ringing off the hook. No one's checking the email anymore.
The only thing that's left is one monkey and one 8-ball. And this is basically how all the things are getting done.
You have a Magic Online format, right? That they do cards just for the online platform.
For the
basically.
arena one, yes.
For Arena? Okay, yeah. And that basically Master Duel is like if Magic Arena, you could only play that format and it didn't have any like standard or whatever else involved.
Online is very popular, obviously, because going out is scary and meeting other people is scary. There's a market for that, but also beyond like this, nobody cares because they're not really important for anything except like the closed online environment, which also doesn't really matter for tournaments or anything.
It is interesting, right? Because yeah, I think online presence really like builds up the game overall in terms of like community. You have so much wider of a spread if you have these online applications. Because yeah, not everyone wants to go to a card shop once a week. I totally get that. That's totally fair. It's much easier to jam a couple games after you get home from work for like an hour on your PC.
I see the advantages. You have an advantage of doing something you can't do in real life, but also changing stuff on an instant if you feel like a card was too good. So you can just say, okay, that does 3 damage instead of 2 or whatever. Like so.
That doesn't happen for us either, not even in the online client, because the cards are based on the actual cards. We don't really have a card in the online client that doesn't exist in the real world.
Yeah.
We do get erratas every once in a while, but they're very far and in between. And so usually if something is too strong, it just gets banned.
Yeah, this is also what they've realized. I mean, they got to the idea, we can just change them, and then they can only change those cards online.
Yeah, right.
So online, a card works different than offline, which is super confusing, especially if you then take it to a tournament and go like, that card doesn't do that.
That's
right?
crazy. I didn't realize
Yes,
they did
see,
that.
it does it. Look, I have a video of it.
Yeah. Well, I guess that makes me glad we don't have a strictly, specifically online pool of cards to have to deal with. But I guess top of your list, fix Yu-Gi-Oh!, take the OCG, the TCG, and online and make it one format, one ban list.
The world is hard. Why do you make it so complicated?
I know another strength that Magic has is the multiple formats that you can play all the cards you do buy in, right?
You're right. I think I asked you that recently. It's like, what formats do you have? It's like, what do you mean formats?
And that's the thing. For the first time ever in this past year, we actually got an officially supported brand new format in Yu-Gi-Oh! Called Genesys, which is officially supported. They actually have like tournament support, prizing support, and it's essentially, from what I've gathered, Canadian Highlander in Magic, where cards have points and your deck has a maximum of 100 points, and then cards that are strong have a lot of points, and cards that are weak don't have any. And people honestly have really been liking it from what I've seen. I think a big strength of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like the deck building and how you can mix and match all the cards to try to really make an engine. And there's so many people that will just be like, I want to build a deck and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to read 5,000 cards in the database until I find exactly what I'm looking for. And I think for those kinds of people, Genesys has been like a huge success because a lot of the fun of Genesys comes from the deck building, right? What do you think about Genesys so far, Johnny?
I love it. We have at these YCSs right now. Last one was actually our 300th, which was in 3 places in the world at the same time. 3 tournaments. 2 tournaments, roughly 2,500 players, and 1 that was roughly 1,000 players in Latin America. At each of these events, we also have a smaller side tournament that is just for Genesys. The game is definitely a bit toned down. All of the generic stuff is very high pointed. So if you have a deck that has a very strong strategy in its own core, and that will be pointed very high, and you can't play all of these super strong staples. And if you play a deck that might be a bit older or a bit weaker, a bit like more fair, and now the strong decks, they play less of them, the weaker decks play more of them, it kind of balances out. And if you have a pet deck, you can just go to the YCS and try it out. There's so many people that go with a deck that's like 4 years old, but they can play all of the staples they want, and that's where they can do okay. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you have 100 points for Genesys, and there's no card that costs more than 100 points. So if you really want to make a deck around one really broken, busted cards from 25 years ago, you can. You just have to play 0-point cards everywhere else.
Spend all 100 points on this one card and try to build around it.
And we had that. Like, there was... Sadly, it was a floodgate, but there was one deck that was called Generator. They play with really, really large monsters that you usually can't play yourself. You have to play them with effects. And there's one monster in the extra deck that it needs 2 level 9s to make, and it just says, like, your opponent cannot play the game. It's completely oppressive, but it was 100 points. So someone played this Generator deck with 0 points and just played this one card and it just locked out everyone, and they did very well at tournaments. They don't have the new, really overpowered cards, no links, no pendulums. And I very much like playing it.
What's the deal with Canadian Highlander? It's something I've just heard about in passing.
The difference is it's a 100 card singleton, so one singular card doesn't really matter. You only buy one card.
I see.
There are like many cards that have difference of points. I like the point system a lot because you, instead of like banning stuff, you change points. If you feel like a card gets too strong, you up it or down it. It makes a lot more sense in a game where your availability is very broad because you can play all the cards. Magic is restricted by the mana, so you can only play your color usually. And then once you have the color, you're already limited, so you don't really have to, like, you cannot play all the best cards anyway. That being said, I think the biggest advantage of those points is people who start building their deck get a natural feeling how much worth their deck is, because you have a limit of 100, you're going to 100.
Yeah.
Like you're not staying at 60.
Yeah, it's a good point.
If you're new to the deck building area and tournament aspect, the points give you a feedback how strong your deck should be.
Right.
Because if you have room, you add more, and then you at least get to a close range of your power level and try again. I was always wondering, because Yu-Gi-Oh has banned cards, but they also do restricted or semi-restricted and all of those.
A sliding scale, basically. So you get 3 copies per deck is like the default.
Yeah.
But cards can be limited to 2 copies or 1 copy or completely not allowed at all and banned, right?
Yeah, seems to be like the monkey 8-ball thing again.
And, I mean, there is kind of the joke of like, we're really going to limit a card to 2 copies. Like, what is the point of that? Like, either put it to 1 or have it at 3, or like, you know.
The point, if you're precise, is you make it better, right? There are probably some cards who should be 2 and not 3, but not 1. But who's really that good to find that out? And then is it worth the cost of people having to memorize all of this? Because let's say a card is restricted by 2. If you play 1, I don't know if there's a second one. So if there's a second one, is that the third one you just played? Or, you know, there's a cost of memory and upkeep.
It does make like each format feel different. Like suddenly you have 2 copies of Droll instead of 3. It's like, wow, I'm getting Drolled way less often now. Isn't that cool? But wait a minute. I'm still getting Drolled. Like, it's still annoying when it does happen. So it doesn't really get rid of that frustration, right? But yeah, I think like you're right in terms of like objective power level. If they could do it perfectly and like just run the algorithm and be like, scientifically, this card should be at 1 copy, this card should be at 2 copies, then it might work, but I do.
Again, you're dealing with humans. Like, you're not dealing with AI that have like a solver and then they go through like, what's the best configuration? How popular is Yu-Gi-Oh in Japan?
Good question.
I would say it's generally more popular in Japan than it is in the West. Like, it just is one of the. I mean, they have a whole second version of Yu-Gi-Oh called Rush Duel that only exists in Japan. Like, it's a whole different set of cards, a whole different game.
What?
And like, it's Yu-Gi-Oh 2 basically.
Really?
And they just never brought it over here because there's not the same market for it.
Different cards. You draw like 5 cards at the beginning of each turn.
End of your turn.
Wait,
So you
end of your turn.
play all your cards and then you draw up to 5 at the. It's like Flesh and Blood almost.
Yeah.
So people play Yu-Gi-Oh and the new version of Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah,
Isn't that
then-
kind of like...
And then Duel Links also is a different version again of Yu-Gi-Oh! And then you have OCG, TCG, and Master Duel. So technically there's 5.
One final new addition to Yu-Gi-Oh that we haven't gotten in the West yet, but they have gotten in Japan, is Overframe collector's cards. Basically, these are the first ever full art Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yes.
That are both coming in just like a normal full art version, but also coming in a serialized numbered version as well. So really aiming to hit the collector's market and give people a reason to buy sealed product and try to hit the jackpot, something a lot of other card games have done. And it seems like people are pretty excited about it. What have you seen, Johnny?
Yeah, just today I've seen a post about the fact that a card from a recent set that was just printed, again, the one that he mentioned, in the Grandmaster Rare, which is the Overframe Rare, which has hieroglyphics on the border and a serialized number from 0 to 100. 100 copies per region. One single copy of a Dark Magician Girl was just sold for over 3 million yen, roughly 21,000 US dollar. I don't know. 17,000 euro.
Yeah.
And for a card that is not a first edition Blue Eyes LOB PSA 10 whatever super old card, but a modern collectible card of this game to go above something like a PSA 10 Moonbryon is unprecedented for us.
From a Magic perspective, where you guys do this crazy collector booster thing that I still don't even really understand what that means. What do you think about all this? You just put all the rare cards in like one $50 pack or something, right? Like,
yeah, nowadays $50 exactly. The
$50 for a boost.
I was joking. That was a joke.
No, I think Avatar costs 50 or 45.
That's a display in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like a whole 24
you get
booster
a box of Yu-Gi-Oh packs for €50.
Yeah, no, those universes set Avatar, Lord of the Rings, they're expensive. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
On release or just like getting there over
Oh,
time?
Lord of the Rings. I think now a box costs more than 1,000. It has a lot of good and bad. The obvious, amazing that came out of it is everything that is just the baseline of a card got much cheaper.
Right.
If you want to play standard, the most basic form of Magic, now I think it's 3 years back in time or whatever, you can buy those versions of rares and they're not that expensive as they would have been because there are other versions of it that are fancier, foil, blinky, shiny, whatever, right? And then on the other side, for the people who have way too much money, they can throw their money at serialized cards, which are the numbers with the on the card, or oversized frame, starlight, fracture, multifoils. you know, I don't know which ones.
Alphabet soup foil.
Yeah, really this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the weird thing to me. Like, is the pool of cards in a collector booster like completely separate from the normal booster? Or is there like, there's special foil, rare, whatever that are exclusive, but then like sometimes in a normal booster, you'll get like one of the fancy foils that you would have gotten in a collector booster? I just don't even understand like conceptually how the card pool works.
I thought it's just like basically the good pulls of like 5 boxes kind of.
No.
That's why we're clueless. We have no idea.
I think if you open, they give you detailed numbers, an explanation of what is in those.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure if you open this on your monitor, you cannot have it on one screen. Like the different cases of each individual slot is like, this can be 5% collector rare foil, but to 10% it's a mythic, and all of those. Like it tells you the different, I guess they have legally are obliged to do this. Yeah. But the main factor is the normal boosters, they are just providing with the unfancy ones, and they have slightly fancier ones once in a while. So you still get that little kick out of it.
Yep.
And then the collector boosters are roughly only foils. So that is already the thing that used to be like the fancy ones before. And then some of them have prettier art and some fewer numbers of them have mega prettier art. And they are basically just different versions of enjoying a singular card, you know, it's like.
But it's a separate pool. Like the One Ring, like let's not say the Post Malone One Ring, but I know that there's also shiny versions.
Same pool.
Some of them you can get in the main boxes and then in the collector boxes, or are they like pretty art versions that are only in the collector boosters?
Everything that is in a set, you can get in a normal booster.
Okay.
Functionally for you to play.
It's just much more likely to get it out of the collector.
Much more likely? No.
You're saying there's standard play booster versions and there's collector booster versions of cards.
Yes, and the collector booster only differ in it has more rares. I guess that's what you're saying in this case. Yes.
Yeah.
And those rares are fancier.
Right.
And then they also add commander product of that set into those boosters, which are not meant to be for tournament play, but I mean they're also identified commander player like shiny stuff, and they buy this, so it's their way of distributing those cards because you cannot get those cards normally except for buying the commander product.
Imagine getting Commander as this fan format and it's taken over your whole game just because they realize people like playing the game that way. I mean, we did Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a version of Commander, which we just did a video on called Domain Format. So if you're interested in that, you can watch that because it's really fun, actually. It's shockingly fun to play 4-player free-for-all Yu-Gi-Oh! And I, for the first time, finally understand the appeal of Commander, because I thought it would be kind of crazy and lame and too many effects and whatever, but it's actually a really good time.
And if you do that, and other people do that, and you keep on pushing, if people say like, I want to play that, and they buy their cards because of this, companies have to adjust. They have to look at their customers. I mean, I don't know Konami, but...
We're looking back at that empty office. I don't know. The monkey's shaking the 8-ball, and I don't know if he's ever going to make us domain decks and put them on store shelves. But I think that would be a very cool idea if they did. You know, I think we're on the upswing, and the Overframe cards that are coming out very soon, they're the last kind of piece to this puzzle to really kind of relaunch Yu-Gi-Oh! I think. So
Already Collection 5 is our first chance for those. So
that's right. So pick them up on Cardmarket. Comment below if you want me to make Toffel play a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! How does that sound, Toffel?
Oh, it sounds frightening.
It sounds very frightening. And that makes for good content for you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.